Hey everybody, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about my story. I'm sure a lot of you tuned in earlier and saw Ellen's story about her journey into functional medicine and really how this whole thing came about, but my story is a little bit different. You know, in 2004, I was diagnosed with a malignant brain tumor. Talk about a perspective change when you have your life planned out and suddenly things aren't going to end the way you thought they were. So fortunately, and that's an entire other story, but I was miraculously healed. Things got better. And at that point, I really didn't feel like I was sick. When Ellen was going through issues with pain and exhaustion and positive double-stranded DNA, I was getting up, taking care of kids, going to work, just really felt like everything was fine. I just didn't notice that I had had any ongoing medical issues. I thought I kind of slid under the bar or escaped that fastball and was on the road to recovery. So, come to find out after Ellen had made some dietary changes, as she talks about with our children and by herself, that I was starting to see dramatic results. And I read an interesting book by Dr. Mark Hyman called The Ultramind Solution and really thought it was an interesting perspective on medicine. You know, I really love what I do in the ER. I still work clinically in the ER, but there's groups of patients that I would see that just couldn't seem to get better. I've done a lot of great things in the ER. It's certainly exciting to be part of saving someone's life or just getting them better when they're really in dire straits. But I wanted to have more of a long-lasting effect. I think a lot of physicians feel that. So once Ellen got into functional medicine, initially I'll have to admit I balked. I thought it was an unusual idea. I mean, we trained in Philadelphia. It was very formal medical education, concentrated on being a fantastic diagnostician, knowing which medications to use to make the patient feel better or heal them when that was possible. And so it was a bit of a paradigm shift once again that Ellen had talked to me about diet influencing people's health or the use of supplements and cofactors to biochemically improve people's metabolism, to change them in ways that could then allow them to recover from chronic disease. So after seeing the changes in my own family, I thought, what the heck, I'll give it a try. I mean, at this point, all of the unhealthy food was out of our house. There was no gluten or dairy to be found. The sugar was gone. And so it was either sneak out in the middle of the night and get some pizza, or, because I'm a bit lazy at times, I decided that I would just start eating healthy and give it a try and see what happens. Well, lo and behold, about 6 weeks into it, I had lost 30 pounds, and suddenly I figured out that I could get out of bed without being in pain all the time, and my back no longer hurt. Suddenly I could sleep a normal amount of hours, 7 or 8 hours, and get up and actually care for children in the morning, or stay awake at night to watch a movie with my wife. So it really did change things. And it's really interesting. Recently I went to get my license redone because we had moved, and they took a new picture. And so as I was changing the pictures out in my wallet, I was shocked. And I'll show you. So this was a picture before I changed my diet. I was much heavier. And this is a picture today. What I think you'll see is that if you look at the first picture, and this is what I see now when I look at patients, I was very inflamed. Where did the 30 pounds come from? Well, part of it was clearly fat that I had lost, but there's a significant amount of inflammatory weight, and it's one of the first things we see in our patients when they go on an elimination diet is that they lose the inflammation in their face. Inflammation is why people have pain. It's why people are fatigued. It's the common starting point for cardiovascular disease, stroke, cancer. These are all inflammatory conditions. So one of the big things that we do when we see patients is help them detox, get rid of the inflammatory foods, get rid of the processed foods, and then that alone helps decrease inflammation. If patients need some additional help, we can do some other things too. But when I saw these changes, it was pretty dramatic. I decided at that point I needed to know more. Went to a functional medicine course through the Institute of Functional Medicine. It was called Applying Functional Medicine in Clinical Practice. And while I was there, I met some amazing people, heard some amazing stories. Particularly, I can recall the story of a child who was, I think, 8 years old, was taken care of by a physician from New York. And when he came to see this physician, this was an 8-year-old autistic boy, had a one-word vocabulary, was not very functional, had a lot of GI issues. So the physician, the functional medicine physician, figured out that the child had issues with heavy metals, that he also had an MTHFR mutation, which has to do with folate metabolism and how your body biochemically processes things. He also was a heavy user of gluten and dairy and processed foods. And if you know anyone with autistic children, they will tell you almost all autistic children have GI issues. So we placed the child on an elimination diet, helped chelate or get rid of some of the heavy metals, and then applied some simple anti-inflammatory supplements and methylated folate. And the child had a dramatic turnaround. You know, there are no guarantees in medicine. But at this conference and throughout my career in functional medicine, I've seen recovery from chronic illness that's nothing short of miraculous, starting in my own family and now through conferences and with my own patients. I'm so happy to say that the missing link, the piece that really haunted me, these folks that would come into the ER and just couldn't seem to get better, suddenly we were seeing improvement in these folks. And so I spend a lot of time now in the ER with patients with chronic abdominal pain or MS, and I talk to them as best I can in a limited time period about their diet, about some things that they can do to really change things. But the ER is not an ideal setting. We do great things there. We help people. I wouldn't give it up for the world. But at the same time, moving into functional medicine and doing that the majority of my time now has really made a remarkable difference for me. If you could see, and this is sort of for the physicians out there, if you could see the recovery that I have seen, the difference that can be made in people's lives, people that had no hope, people that have had chronic illness, people who've been told, we don't know what's wrong with you, or we're not sure there is anything wrong with you, or maybe it's in your head, or, you know, these are unsatisfactory answers to patients who are having real problems. And so we've been able to really wade through the weeds on these folks. And when we see people, everything starts with listening to them, hearing them. It's the lost art in medicine. Hearing these folks, and when you come to see us in our office, one of the things I always do when I sit down with people is I tell them at the very beginning, my goal at the end of this is to be able to tell your story back to you in a way that makes sense to you. And then we'll work together and try and figure it out, because it's difficult. I don't always have all the answers. Patients will come and ask me about things. I'm happy to learn from people, patients or otherwise. My focus is to get people feeling better and to make them fully functional, to restore hope and healing again, to do something that can alter the trajectory of their life. You know, there's a lot of bad things that can happen to people, financial, relationship, but one of the most devastating things is for people to have a chronic illness with absolutely no hope of recovery. And I'm glad to say that when patients come to our office and we see folks with metastatic cancer, we see folks in whom a cure is not possible. But I can tell you healing to some degree always takes place. And that's the most exciting thing that I've done in my career. So we sure hope you'll check us out at Vine Healthcare. If you have any questions, go to our website, give us a call. We'd be happy to see you, and hopefully we can make a difference to you, especially for folks like me who never really thought they were very sick. You know, it's amazing to know how good you can feel when you just don't feel bad anymore. Have a great night.